Trust me, what I'm about to reveal about Munkin's tearful introduction, his cryptic response about Shedeur Sanders, and the shocking truth about Jim Schwartz will blow your mind. Now let's get into this incredible story. Hold on to your seats, Cleveland Browns fans, because the Todd Monken era just kicked off with one of the most emotional, raw, and authentic press conferences I've ever witnessed in professional sports. This wasn't your typical boring NFL introduction where the new coach rattles off a bunch of meaningless platitudes about competing and building a culture. No, 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 this was Todd Monken laying his heart on the line, breaking down in tears multiple times, dropping absolute bombs about the roster, and giving us some seriously cryptic answers about the most important questions facing this franchise. Let me set the scene for you because this was absolutely cinema. Andrew Berry, the Browns' general manager, started things off by breaking down exactly why they chose Todd Monken out of all the candidates they interviewed. And let me tell you, the process they described was intense. They interviewed 9 different candidates out of an initial pool of 20 to 25 coaches. That's not just kicking the tires, that's doing your homework to the absolute maximum degree. Berry laid out the specific situation the Browns are facing, and this is crucial for understanding why Monken was the perfect fit. He said they evaluated where the team stands right now, and here's what they found. The defense is the 8th youngest in the entire NFL in terms of experience, and they feel really good about it at all 3 levels. That's linebackers, defensive line, and secondary for those keeping track at home. But here's where it gets interesting. On offense, they identified some young cornerstone pieces, but they're expecting massive turnover over the next several months. That's not speculation, that's coming directly from the general manager's mouth. Think about what that means for a second. The Browns are about to completely overhaul their offensive roster. We're talking significant changes in personnel, probably at multiple positions. And they're going into this offseason flush with draft picks and cap flexibility, which means they have the resources to make major moves. This is not a team that's going to sit back and hope things get better. They're going to be aggressive, they're going to make changes, and they're going to build this thing the right way. So what were they looking for in a head coach given this specific situation? Berry broke it down into some very specific criteria, and this is where you can see they weren't just winging it or going with their gut feelings. They wanted someone who could lead, develop, and grow a young team because, get this, the Browns are probably going to be the youngest or one of the youngest teams in the entire NFL in 2026. That's next season, folks. This is going to be a team full of rookies and second-year players who need proper development. The second thing they wanted was a coach with a strong and adaptable offensive plan. Notice they didn't say they wanted a defensive coach or a special teams guru. They specifically targeted someone who could fix the offense given all the turnover that's coming. That tells you everything you need to know about their priorities. The defense is solid and young. The offense needs a complete rebuild, and they needed the right mastermind to make it happen. But Berry didn't stop there. He outlined 4 key attributes they were looking for. And this is where it gets really interesting because these aren't the typical coaching buzzwords you hear thrown around. First, they wanted what they called global intelligence. That's not just being smart or having a high IQ. That's emotional intelligence, football acumen, the whole package. Second, they wanted CEO leadership, someone who can operate at 30,000 feet with the big picture stuff but can also get down in the tactical details when needed. Third, and this is huge, they wanted someone with a demonstrated track record of innovation. They didn't want someone who was going to run the same old boring offense that every other team runs. They wanted creativity, adaptability, someone who could adjust on the fly and keep defenses guessing. And fourth, they wanted collaboration because in the modern NFL, the head coach has to work with so many different areas of football operations. You can't be a dictator anymore. You have to be able to work with your GM, your analytics department, your coaching staff, everyone. So how did they evaluate all these characteristics? They looked at performance track records throughout each candidate's entire career. They made reference calls, and not just a couple. They made numerous reference calls to people who had direct working relationships with the candidates at every stop of their careers. They did testing, they did work samples, and obviously they did interviews. They combined all of that information to make the best decision possible, and when they did all that work, Berry said Todd Monken stood head and shoulders above the rest. Now, let me tell you why Monken is so special according to Barry, because this breakdown was absolutely glowing. First, Monken has had high-level, innovative, adaptable offenses at both the pro and college level. It doesn't matter what personnel he had, doesn't matter who his quarterback was, doesn't matter what he inherited, he always found a way to have productive, high-level units. That's not luck, that's skill, that's a coach who knows how to maximize talent regardless of the circumstances. Second, everyone they talked to about Monken raved about how strong he is at working with and developing young players. This is crucial given how young the Browns roster is going to be. The beauty of Monken's background is he has experience in both the pros and college, and that translates to how he leads and grows young talent. He knows how to communicate with players at different stages of their careers. He knows how to teach fundamental concepts while also preparing guys for the highest level of football. Third, look at the mentors Monken has worked for recently. Kirby Smart at Georgia and John Harbaugh with the Ravens. Are you kidding me? Those are arguably the two best coaches in college and pro football right now. Smart has won multiple national championships at Georgia. Harbaugh has consistently had the Ravens as one of the best teams in the AFC. The lessons Monken learned from those two coaching legends are invaluable, and he's going to bring all that knowledge to Cleveland. And fourth, perhaps most importantly, Monken understands what the head coaching job actually entails. His time at Southern Miss, where he inherited a program at its absolute lowest point and turned it around with limited resources, proves he has the leadership, the gumption, the resourcefulness to do this job at any level. This isn't some coordinator who's never had to manage an entire program before. This is a guy who's been in the trenches, who knows how hard it is, who's proven he can build something from nothing. Barry summed it up perfectly when he said Monken fit them like a glove. This wasn't settling for their third or fourth choice. This was getting exactly the guy they wanted for the exact situation they're in. And then it was time for Monken to speak, and oh my goodness, this is where things got emotional. Monken started off by saying he's excited to lead this flagship NFL franchise, and you could already hear the emotion in his voice. He said it's been a long time coming, it's been a long journey, and there are a lot of people he needs to thank. But right away, you could tell this meant everything to him. He said he's jacked, he's excited to be with the Cleveland Browns, and it's hard to even put into words. He thanked the Haslam family, Jimmy, Dee, Whitney, and JW for entrusting him with this opportunity to help build a winning team with the NFL's most passionate and dedicated fan base. He gave a shout out to the Dog Pound, which the fans are going to love. But then he dropped a really interesting nugget. He said that back in 2019, when he interviewed in Cleveland the first time, Andrew Barry was his contact and the first person he met with in the building. Even back then, Monken could tell they were aligned in their vision for how you build a roster and develop players. That relationship goes back years, and now they're going to be connected at the hip building this roster to a championship level. Monken talked about his time with Kirby Smart and John Harbaugh, calling it getting a doctorate in coaching. He said he owes both of them a ton of gratitude because they trusted him to elevate their offenses, which is a credit to the staff and players he worked with. But here's what's really important. He said the one thing he learned from both of them is what it means to confront anything that gets in the way of winning football. Now, listen to this carefully, because this is Monken's coaching philosophy in a nutshell. He said Kirby and John both get to the same point, they just do it completely differently. It's an art because ultimately, just like with your own children, you're going to confront anything that gets in the way of helping them become the best version of themselves. That's your job with something you love. This tells you Monken is going to hold people accountable, but he's going to do it the right way. He's not going to be a screamer or a tyrant. He's going to challenge guys to be their best because he genuinely cares about their development. He specifically praised Harbaugh for being elite at messaging with a team and dealing with players. He said Harbaugh taught him how to confront anything that gets in the way of winning without being confrontational. That's an art form. That's the sign of a mature, experienced coach who understands human psychology and knows how to get the most out of his players without creating a toxic environment. And then, this is where it got real emotional. Monken started thanking his family, and you could see him fighting back tears. He thanked his mom and dad, who are no longer with us. He thanked his brothers Tony and Ted, who drove up to be there for his big day. He thanked his father-in-law Chuck, his son Travis, and his fiancée Anna. And then he got to his wife Terry, and that's when the waterworks really started flowing. He said they've been together for 40 years, married for 34, and Terry would probably say that's really only 6 because he's actually married to the game. But even through the tears and the emotion, you could see the genuine love and appreciation Monken has for his family and everyone who supported him on this journey. He told Terry he loves her, and you could tell he meant every single word. Now, before he took questions, Monken said something that I think is going to define his tenure in Cleveland. He said the Haslams cut a check with his name on it, and what do they expect? A freaking kick-ass football team. That's what they expect. They want to become a winning franchise that the fan base and the region can be proud of. And Monken said his job is to prove it every single day. That mentality right there, that's what Cleveland needs. They need someone who understands the expectations, who embraces the pressure, who's ready to put in the work to build something special. Monken isn't intimidated by the challenge. He's excited about it. He's ready to run into the smoke, as he said later in the press conference. Then came the questions, and this is where things got really interesting. Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com asked the question everyone wanted to know. Will you head into this offseason with Shedeur Sanders as your QB1? And if not, what's your approach to the quarterback situation? Now, pay very close attention to Monken's answer because it was carefully worded, but also very revealing. He said, I think like any position on the team, that's still to be determined. Am I excited about Shedeur? Am I excited about all the quarterbacks in the room? Am I excited to coach this football team? Absolutely. I can't wait for them to get back and for us to get started. What does that tell us? First, he's not handing the job to anyone. This is going to be a competition. Second, he's excited about Shedeur, but he's also excited about the other quarterbacks in the room, which presumably includes Deshaun Watson and whoever else they might bring in. Third, and this is crucial, he can't wait to get started coaching them, which tells me he genuinely believes he can develop whoever the quarterback ends up being into something special. But notice what he didn't say. He didn't say Shedeur is definitely going to be the starter. He didn't say they're going all in on drafting him. He kept it vague, kept his options open, and made it clear that everything is still to be determined. That's smart coaching. Don't create unnecessary controversy or lock yourself into a decision before you've had time to properly evaluate everything. Someone asked about the drama from his 2019 stint in Cleveland and how he'll manage that as head coach. Monken gave a really mature answer. He said he learned a lot during that season, and you learn more when things aren't going well than when they are. He learned things he would have done differently, but now he's ready to move forward with the 2026 team. He's not dwelling on the past, he's focused on the future. When asked about what he's looking for in a quarterback, Monken emphasized personality traits first. He wants someone who has the IT factor, someone the team wants to follow and believes in because the ball is in their hands every single down. He talked about 2-minute situations, 4-minute situations where you have to execute at a high level under pressure. Those are the characteristics he's looking for before you even get to the physical traits. This tells me Monken values leadership and mental toughness in his quarterback as much as arm strength or mobility. He wants a guy who can handle the pressure, who teammates believe in, who can execute when the game is on the line. That's what separates good quarterbacks from great ones. The story about his childhood was absolutely fantastic. Monken said he's been part of a team since he was 5 years old with the Purple Pounders of Wheaton, Illinois. Every Halloween, he dressed up as a football player. Every gift he got was football-related, whether it was the vibrating football game, talking football, or rubber band football. All he ever wanted to do was be part of a team and coach football. That passion, that lifelong love of the game, that's what you want in your head coach. He said it wasn't until he got to the NFL that being a head coach became a realistic possibility, and there have been times before where he came close. But he believes God put him in the right place at the right time, and that time is now. When asked if he ever thought this wouldn't happen for him, Monken admitted he's not getting any younger, but he also said the version of him they're getting now is a hell of a lot better than it would have been 15 or 20 years ago. That's real talk. He's at the peak of his coaching powers, with all the experience and wisdom from working with some of the best coaches in football. He made a great point about how exclusive this profession is. There are 32 NFL teams and roughly 68 Power 4 college jobs. That's only about 100 head coaching positions in the entire world. Within a 30-mile radius of any city, there might be 100 doctors or attorneys, but there are only 100 elite football head coaching jobs on the planet. That puts into perspective how special this opportunity is. When asked about setting a culture of accountability without turning players off, Monken gave an absolutely brilliant answer. He said, "You have to hold players accountable for what they say their dreams and aspirations are. You have to find out what they really want individually and collectively, and then you
Head
hold
coach
them
Kevin
to those
Stefanski
goals."
announcing Monday that he
He's
has
not
relinquished play
imposing
calling
his
to
will on
offensive
them.
coordinator
He's
Tommy
helping them
Rees.
achieve what they've said they want to achieve. That's coaching from a place of love and support rather than just criticism. He said everybody likes honesty until they don't like what's said to them honestly. Even he's the same way. Nobody likes hearing negative feedback, but that's how you get better. The people who love you most are going to be honest with you. All he's doing is finding out what your dreams and aspirations are and then fighting like hell to help you achieve them. That's the kind of coach players will run through walls for. Now, here comes the bombshell. When asked about the defense and whether he's talked to Jim Schwartz yet, Monken confirmed he has talked to Jim, but then he was asked directly about Schwartz's status. Will he be back as defensive coordinator? And Monken's answer was shocking. He said Jim is an outstanding defensive coordinator. Everyone would agree with that, but he thinks it's inappropriate for him to comment on that at this time. What does that mean? To me, that sounds like Jim Schwartz is not coming back. If Schwartz was definitely returning, Monken would just say so. The fact that he's calling it inappropriate to comment tells me there are still negotiations happening, or maybe Schwartz has already decided to leave and they haven't announced it yet. This is a massive story that's going to develop over the coming days and weeks. When asked about what it takes to get a turnaround going, especially in the NFL, Monken's answer was powerful. He said it takes perseverance because winning is hard, but the reward is unbelievable. He said, if you like a challenge, this is it. Let's get Cleveland to where they're the standard. The time is now. It requires perseverance, mental toughness, surrounding yourself with the right people on the staff and in the locker room, people who want to run into that smoke. Not everyone wants to run into the smoke. Not everyone wants to treat it like 4th and 1 every single day. But it is 4th and 1 every day, and you need people who embrace that mentality. And finally, when asked if becoming an NFL head coach was his goal when he came back from Georgia, Monken said absolutely 100%. He called around to NFL head coaches to ask them if they enjoyed the job because it's not easy. Kevin Stefanski was one of the people he talked to, along with Matt LaFleur and others. To a man, they all said they loved being an NFL head coach. That's why he left Georgia, even though they were winning championships and had great players. The challenge of elevating an NFL offense and potentially becoming a head coach was too good to pass up. So, where does this leave the Cleveland Browns heading into the offseason? We've got a new head coach who's passionate, emotional, experienced, and ready for the challenge. We've got a team that's going to be one of the youngest in the NFL with significant offensive turnover coming. We've got a quarterback situation that's completely up in the air with multiple options on the table. And we've got a defensive coordinator situation that's unclear with Jim Schwartz's future very much in doubt. The one thing that's crystal clear is this organization has a plan. They're not panicking. They're not making desperate moves. They're being methodical and disciplined in how they're building this thing. Andrew Berry laid out exactly what they were looking for in a head coach. They found their guy, and now it's time to execute the vision. Monken brings credibility, experience, and a proven track record of developing offenses and quarterbacks. He's worked with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, helping him become an MVP. He's been part of back-to-back national championship teams at Georgia. He's turned around programs that were at rock bottom. He knows what winning looks like, and more importantly, he knows what it takes to build a winner. The emotion he showed during that press conference wasn't weakness, it was authenticity. That was a man who's poured his entire life into football, who's sacrificed time with his family, who's worked his way up from small college positions to the absolute pinnacle of the profession. That was genuine gratitude and appreciation for everyone who helped him along the way. Players are going to respond to that kind of authenticity. They're going to play hard for a coach who wears his heart on his sleeve and genuinely cares about them as people, not just as players. The accountability piece is going to be crucial. Cleveland has lacked that in recent years, and multiple people have said it, including Jimmy Haslam, when he mentioned that players told him they needed more accountability. Monken is going to bring that, but he's going to do it the right way, the John Harbaugh way, confronting issues without being confrontational. That's how you build a sustainable winning culture.